See if I get a balloon in the head. They're soft, so I'm all right. Well, great to be here today. This is a good example of the legislature working together through this Legislative Council Committee, really focusing on the needs for adoptive families, but also making sure the children that are adopted, both through the adoption process and through foster care, are getting the right placement, the right connections, the right families. We can see the benefit, excuse me, the benefit of that. And so a number of the changes that are made today in the laws will help do that in the future and help us track to make sure that the Department of Children and Families can keep track of the progress, making sure that the policies not only the states put in place, but that our partners at the county and at the nonprofit level, as well as here in Milwaukee County with Milwaukee Child Welfare, are all working in a positive way for children and families here in the state. So it's my honor to be here today to sign that in the law as part of a series of things we're trying to do to help protect children in the state.
Judge Faust has just denied the state's stay in the right to work case. Does that have any impact at all on businesses who are negotiating contracts or anything like that right now?
I think for most businesses that are both here and those looking to come here, it's part of a long-term benefit they look at when comparing us to other states and other places around the world. So I think a short-term issue isn't necessarily a problem. If it was permanently the case, it would be a factor, I no doubt. But I have every confidence, just like you saw with Act 10. Act 10 went through state and federal court on 10 different occasions. We prevailed, and I think ultimately will prevail throughout the appellate process.
Give us your thoughts on Antigo, and will you go there?
I'm going to reach out and talk to some of the folks, particularly the police department today. I think I'm going to talk to the chief, but specifically to the officers involved. I mean, what incredible professionalism in their standpoint. I think it's without a doubt, had they not acted as quickly as they did, what was obviously a tragic situation for the one individual could have been much more tragic. And so appreciate the good work, and we'll reach out to the families, but not just for the two individuals that were involved, but just for the families in general. I grew up in a small town about the size of Antigo. I know as a father, you know, my kids both went through prom and homecoming. I can only imagine just how troubling that is. What it does, though, it raises a larger issue, and that is, I mean, ironically, last night, Tonette and I were at an event for a group called Generations Against Bowling. And from what we know from the early reports, at least, we'll find out more in the future, but at least one of the students said that this individual had experienced extended amounts of bowling. That in no way justifies, obviously, what he did, but it does go to the point that in society, whether it's dealing with that, we put a few years ago more money into mental health services than any governor had in 25 years. You look at bowling issues, you look at mental health issues, you just look in general in society, whether it be in politics and media elsewhere. There's an awful lot of anger that's being talked about. We need to find ways not only for our children but as adults to do more to settle disputes without force, and rather to do it in peaceful ways. And I think this just encourages all of us, not just in government, but all of us in society to be more active in that.
You said this morning that you may campaign for Ted Cruz in Indiana on Sunday. Was that their doing, or is that something you reached out to them on?
It's something, apparently they have some interest. We'll have to see schedule-wise. I don't know if it's going to work or not, but if they're interested, or there is some interest in us helping. They had an open offer for other states, but we'll see. It's one of those where I think it's going to be very close. And whether it's inside visit, or we've done some help in the past with calls and other things that we've made for them in other states.
Earlier this year, you talked about the importance of being back on the job here and kind of reconnecting with the people of Wisconsin, and now there's buzz about your name being floated as a VP running mate. Would you rule it out?
I think the way the process is, you're not going to have a nominee before the convention. So unlike conventional wisdom, the nominee will not pick a vice president, the delegates will. I think it'll be just like it was when the first Republican president was nominated, and that being Abraham Lincoln, won the nomination on the fourth vote. They picked the delegates picked the vice presidential runner mate on, I believe it was the second vote. So I don't know what the future holds. I can just tell you I love being governor. My focus is on being governor.
The strategy that Cruz and Kasich have in clearing the path for each other in different states, is that sound strategy?
Oh, I think they probably should have talked amongst candidates sooner. I mean, if folks had gotten behind Marco Rubio in Florida, I think he probably would have won. I mean, remember, part of the reason why I suspended my race back in September was because I firmly believed that a majority of voters were not supporting the front runner at the time, who's still the front runner today, but a majority spread amongst many can't beat a plurality. A plurality wins when the majority is spread amongst many, and I made it clear in September, as I have today, that I think there are better choices out there. And if a majority of the voters get behind those choices, I think not only will my party be better, I think the country will be better with a better choice.
Did you suggest this to Ted Cruz
I
at
did
any
not.
point?
No.
Two more.
Senator Taylor's calling for a special session to address the criminal justice concerns. What are your thoughts on that?
We'll certainly look for things. We've made a series of changes. You know, years ago, we put money in the shot spotter here in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee specifically. We've done some other things. You know, we're always looking at objectives, but I think talking to lawmakers in both parties, a fair amount of their work is going to be gearing up for the next legislative session. And a big chunk of what we can do probably will be done in the next budget, which will come out, which we'll start working on in June, but won't come out till early next year.
Specifically the situation of Lincoln Hills and what's kind of the trickle down here in Milwaukee County. She
Again,
said it needs more immediate attention.
Well, they have taken immediate action. There's a new Secretary of Corrections, there's a new superintendent, there's a new division head. If there's a specific piece of legislation, that's one thing, but I haven't heard that. It's really addressing the issue. And you know, whether it's there, here in Milwaukee County or elsewhere, one of the biggest challenges is consistent with other employers, and that is, the good news is unemployment is down. Employment's at an all-time high. We have more than 3 million people employed in the state of Wisconsin. That's the first time ever. Unemployment's at about a decade and a half low. The challenge becomes whether it's in a public institution, a private nonprofit institution, or private company, it's hard to find employees. And so we've got to do more to help find workers out there. Corrections is one of the many areas, like other employers in the state, that faces that. But it doesn't require a new bill to do that. It's just going to be new incentives, which we're working on in the administration, ways that we can do more with not only salary adjustments, but even some retention bonuses that we're looking at, and we'll be announcing later probably the next month or two.
Last question.
Hey, can you give me one more update about how important this bill was to be signed for today, Governor?
Yeah. The bottom line is we want to make sure that not only is it easier to adopt and to be involved in foster care in the state, but that as part of that process, that we're able to make sure that those are good adoptions, that the children go to great families. And so a number of these changes not only streamline the process, but they provide uniformity in terms of the process of helping families prepare for adopting children, making sure that that's consistent in all different parts of the state and with different partners, whether it's counties, whether it's nonprofits, whether it's the Milwaukee Child Welfare System or others. We also, a number of these changes allow us to track to make sure that the results are consistent, and that, again, in the future, if we need to make changes or tweaks, that they're positive ones. And again, that's why I think you see such broad bipartisan support for these bills.
On a personal note, you made reference to your home up the street. It's sold. Are you Wauwatosa now?
Not yet. Closes this week, so it's a little bittersweet. Both our kids were raised, went to Wauwatosa East High School, so being in the neighborhood. But as empty nesters, one child's going to graduate in a few weeks from college. The other graduates next year. We realized with two boys who have year-round leases that aren't here, it's probably time to get a smaller place.
Have you found
Thank you very
another?
much.
I have not yet. Well, you know, the benefit of being in the residence is you got a little leeway in terms of time to look for the future.
All
We'll
right,
have to
thanks.
decide whether we want a spot to settle in 2.5 years or 6.5 years. It all depends on what the future holds. Great, thanks.
Thank you.